All right, so on the last video, we talked about removable discontinuity or holes. The next step you'd want to do when you're looking to graph these rational functions is you're going to actually look to see if you can find any vertical asymptotes. So vertical asymptotes are lines you can never ever cross because that means you're going to divide by 0. So we have an equation here that says write the equation or equations of any vertical asymptotes of the below function. We have f of x equals x all over x to the fourth minus 9x squared. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is let's factor everything. Once again, with rational functions, factor, factor, factor. So we have f of x equals x over my x to the fourth minus 9x squared. All right, so the top doesn't factor, but the bottom definitely does because I already have a GCF of x squared. So I can factor this to x over x squared minus 9. Hey, wait, this is a difference of 2 squares, so that even factors as well. And I have x over x squared, x plus 3, and x minus 3. Okay, now I'm fully factored. At this point, we'd always say, hey, what's the excluded terms, or write the domain of this. But we also want to simplify because we want to look for holes first. If there's any holes, we need to take those out first before we find the vertical asymptote. So if you notice, I have an x here and 2 x's, or x squareds, on the bottom because I have x times x. So this cancels, becomes a 1, and my exponent goes away. So this simplifies down to 1 over x times x plus 3, x minus 3. To find my vertical asymptotes, all I'm going to do is set everything that's left after I reduced it, after I simplified it down. Just set everything equal to 0, and you have your equations for your vertical asymptotes. It's that simple. So I have x equals 0, no algebra required. There's my first equation. I have x plus 3 equals 0. Well, if I subtract 3, I now have x equals negative 3. And I have x minus 3 equals 0. And if I just simply add 3, I have x equals 3. So in this case, this equation actually has 3 vertical asymptotes. So my vertical asymptotes, they're equations. So don't just give you numbers like 0, negative 3, and 3. They're actual equations. So your vertical asymptotes are at x equals 0, x equals negative 3, and x equals 3. Those are your answers for your vertical asymptotes. Don't try to over confuse this. Key thing is, and I see this all the time, you just give me the numbers. Don't give me numbers. Make sure they are equations of the line for your vertical asymptotes.